Oh, well, I guess he has an excuse then.
He was out visiting his wife, and
He's been in Paris, hasn't he?
yeah, I think they were in Paris, and yeah, they were
He's just a fancy guy.
traveling the globe.
He's
Yeah.
been all over. I've seen his travel log on Facebook. It's impressive.
I'm telling you, makes me wish I was Kevin sometimes.
He did a 20 years difference between going to Jim Morrison's grave.
Yeah,
So
I saw that.
like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and then now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I never visited Jim Morrison's grave when I was in Paris. I didn't get that far.
I've never been to Paris, but if I did, I would visit it. Why not? He was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've never been out of the United States.
Like Elvis.
I visited Francois Truffaut's grave, and that was totally by accident. We were just wandering through Montmartre Cemetery, and I was like, "Oh, holy crap!" It's I started boring my wife about French New Wave and everything like that. And so it was kind of cool. It's a place, if you have a chance to go to, you should definitely check it out.
Oh no, we'll definitely go. I think we're going to do a Europe trip next year, and yeah, definitely, yeah.
Right on. All right, so we're ready to get started then, gentlemen and Jared. All right,
and Jared.
Let's go. It never gets old for me. Jared's like, yeah, screw it.
I love it. I love it every time.
Hey, Jared.
Hey, Dave.
Showing the road. And welcome to G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. I am your host, Aaron Brotherhead Moss. And joining me, as usual, I have a group of people, I guess we'll call them. Oh, we'll go ahead and start with my right-hand top corner there on StreamYard. We have Jared Albrick, the yard sale artist, drawer, whatever guy.
Hey, man, I am thrilled to be here, and I've been hiding in your house for a while, and I just want to pop out of a air duct and say hello and maybe fight some people.
Hey, Jared's also known as Death Probe. Just I get that sound clip in there.
I'll do it. I got you covered.
Oh, I've got all the sound clips. Just a matter of doing it. Also joining us from the very merry land down under, we have our Australian friend, Dave. Hey, Dave, how you doing, buddy?
I'm very well, thanks, Aaron, and glad to be here and excited. And this time I woke up and I got here in time, so I feel like I'm already one step ahead of the game.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I was telling Jared that, before it was just me and him that, Brad should be here and Dave should be joining us. Is that the Australian guy that was like an hour late? Well, yeah, that's him. I'm like, oh, I will give him a little bit of a break. It is, very early in the morning for, crack of dawn for him. So
it needs to be stated that I said it in a loving way. Not
it was very much a loving joke.
No problems, Jared. Don't worry. And in fact, we can thank my girlfriend who was like, "What's that alarm going off for?" And I was like, "Oh, that's my alarm. I've got to get up." Spit out of bed like grease lightning.
And last, but certainly not least, we have Sir Pantless himself, Mr. Brad Abraham. Hey, Brad.
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for having me back. Thank you for letting the courts lift that restraining order you had against me.
Well, it did actually hurt me, so I figured I'd let you know.
Well, I mean, I'm sure all of three people were wondering where I was during the issue 50 and 51 episodes, but there are extenuating circumstances as always. But I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you got the camera up from your torso up. That way we don't see you being actually Sir Pantless, because
Well, this is a family show. Nobody wants to see that.
And I think it's part of the restraining order being lifted. You can't do it anymore.
It's European.
Oh, I am not peeing. And over in the chat, joining us over in the chat, we have Heinz Koch. I believe I'm pronouncing that properly. He says, glad to see everyone. We're glad to see you, Heinz. Glad you could join us. And we're here to talk a little bit of G.I. Joe. Before the show, we were talking some G.I. Joe Classified. Apparently, Brad's decided to join the fun and get caught up in it. He says he's only going to get a select few. We'll see. We'll check him within a year or so and see.
I may have covertly picked up a couple other ones along the way. I won't say which ones though.
I feel like I need to jump in with a public service message. I was just at my local Ollie's this week, and Ollie's has all the classifieds from the Snake Eyes line. You know, the movie that we're wishy-washy on, but some of those figures are pretty good. And they have all of those, and they're $4.99 each.
Wow.
Wow.
That's, I mean, even if you don't love the Snake Eyes movie, those sculpts are pretty good for $5 a figure.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done that already, check it out.
Yeah, and I hear that
I picked up the Arctic Bat the other day. Sorry.
No, go ahead. How is it?
Oh, the Arctic Bat, awesome. I've got quite a few of the Bat figures. So yeah, it looks really good. I was actually super impressed with the look of it.
Do you have a lot of the Arctic Joes and Cobras because you're in Australia and you don't get as much snow down there?
No. No other ones. But I also got is it Bazooka, who's got like sort of like a, not a baseball, but he's got sort of like a sweatshirt,
Like a jersey. Yeah.
jersey. Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
Aaron's
That's the word I was
holding him
looking
up.
for. Yes. So I got that one recently, and the Arctic Bat, and as Aaron knows, I am on high alert for Snake Eyes Desert Commando and the Crimson Twins and the Crimson Baroness. That's what I'm looking forward to. It's very addictive, though. Basically,
Yeah. You got to watch it. You get into trouble.
Yeah, in fact,
Great.
I ordered two trouble bubbles, and they should be here very shortly. So,
that's cool.
I look
Aaron. I
forward
know
to
you
getting
were
into
waiting for
trouble.
that.
I look forward to getting into trouble with classified figures.
along with my Dr. Mindbender that I've ordered like a year and a half ago, wherever it was, he's finally coming.
I've got a question. How if they did a rattler, like how big would that be if it had to fit a person, like say fit Baroness in? Would that be doable?
Well, anything's doable, Dave. Anything is.
Well,
it is
I
feasible,
ordered
but
ordered the Dragonfly, which is for the classified line, so that's going to have to be pretty big. I'll get back to you. Back to you on that.
Yeah, that would have to be pretty. I'm just trying to put in my mind about how large it would have to be, and whether they could sell that in stores, and what kind of price tag it would be. How much is a Dragonfly?
To back it on the HasLab, it was like $300, but I went all in on that, as I was telling Aaron, because it's modeled after the AH-1 Cobra, and that's what my dad flew, so it's dear to my heart. And I never had it as a kid, which broke my heart as a kid. I'm like, how do I not have the one thing my dad flies? So I went all in on the 300.
I don't blame you. I think that sounds awesome. Yeah, like the Dragonfly is awesome. So would a Rattler be bigger than a Dragonfly? Or about the same? Probably a bit bigger.
Slightly larger, maybe?
Span.
Well, I think the wingspan would make it.
Yeah, the wingspan.
Yeah. As far as
I had both back in the day. I had the Dragonfly and the Rattler, and I think what Aaron said is right. Lengthwise, they were about the same, but the wingspan kind of
back
threw
in
things
the
out a little.
80s. How much would something like that have set you back? Do you reckon? Would it be like $50 or less?
No, they were so cheap back then. I was looking through.
They were like $20.
This is related to what we'll be talking about later with the cartoon. I actually looked up some old prices on 80s toys catalogs, and the headquarters command center would have set you back $30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how things have, changed?
Oh yeah. But I guess we'll get to that when we talk about the episode and the everything, which Aaron gathered us here. We're going on a big tangent, diverging from
that's all right.
the topic.
It's all GI Joe related, so I'm fine with that.
Earlier, Brad said I had both of those as a kid, talking about the Rattler and the Dragonfly. But what I heard was I had both of those as a kid.
That's what I heard
My
too.
parents really love me.
My parents did not really love me, but they did buy me a lot of stuff to compensate for it. So,
well, that's okay.
Only in 1 year. We'll get to this. We'll get to this. I'm going to get everybody who's listening to hang on. We will talk about this when we talk about the Christmas episode.
So to kind of answer Dave's question, sort of the Dragonfly originally, according to Yojo.com, was $8.99.
Wow.
When the Dragonfly came out.
And now it's $300.
You can't even buy a figure for $8.99.
No, you
The-
can't.
Well, unless you go to Ollie's. You get
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Snake Eyes Origin
That's right. You get the Snake Eyes and the Storm Shadow. Anyway.
and the Rattler. Anyone want to take a guess on price wise?
24.
12.
$1. Oh, I thought we were doing prices right.
Jared is the closest without going over.
Yes.
It was $9.90 according to Yojo.com.
Wow.
For the
Crazy,
Rattler.
isn't
Wow.
it?
Not to say,
I was
yeah, well,
well. I lived in Canada at the time, and toys, like
Oh.
everything else in Canada, were a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because of taxes and just the economics of it. So you would routinely pay about $10 more for like a big vehicle. Like the Mobot
Cool.
US was $20, but in Canada it was more like 30, and the Vamp was about 12 in the US, but it was about 20 in Canada. So you always pay a little more.
that's because you're in Canada. Oh,
Yeah.
They need to get more
Really, yeah.
vehicles in the classified range. They need to get more. I guess it's hard because of the scaling, but it just
Right.
feels like G.I. Joe. There's always been vehicles.
Aren't they
Yeah.
doing the Vamp? I heard they're doing the classified series Vamp with Clutch.
I believe so. In fact,
And I think
it's
it's
out,
coming up for
if I'm not
pre-order
mistaken.
soon.
Yeah. And they announced the Ferret eventually. They
Good.
said when, but that's one of the ones they're talking about doing in the future is the Ferret. So they are slowly doing some more vehicles. So I don't know how big they're going to be going. I say through the HasLab, they're doing the Dragonfly. So I mean, to me, if it does
That's
well,
cool.
that could open the door for a lot more of those larger vehicles.
Are you picking up a Dragonfly, Aaron?
What's
Or-
that?
Or not? Are
Dragonfly?
you
No,
going to get the Dragonfly?
no. As I was telling Jared, I don't have that kind of money just laying around.
Maybe sell a kid or something.
If I could, I've been trying. I mean, what? I've got
Sorry,
plenty of spare, so
Did you say sell a kid or sell a kidney?
A kid. I said a
Oh,
kid.
okay,
But
okay.
I would have better luck with a kid. The kidneys are probably shot. So, a nice Cobra Commander there, Jared. We'll comment on your artwork real quick. That's very nice.
Thanks, sir.
Lovely.
Thank you, sir.
Be better if it was hooded, but that's just my own.
It's funny you should say
Yeah.
that because I also prefer them hooded, but I use the cartoon as all the reference for all
Right.
these ones I've been doing. Whenever they draw him on the cartoon with the hood, it never looks right. He looks better
Yeah.
in face mask in the cartoon.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's always too wide, and anyways.
But yeah,
It is good to see the hood, though. We saw the hood today in this week's
yes.
episode. It's always good to see.
So, speaking of the cartoon, we're not going to talk about that right now, but we will talk about the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're here to talk about issue 52. It was entitled Snap Decisions. Before I get into all that, let's talk about the cover. I guess we'll go that first. The cover of this has a green background, starting out a light green, fading up to a darker green. We have Quick Kick and Storm Shadow fighting on the cover. Will look like they're fighting. Storm Shadow's taking a swing at him. Quick Kick is throwing his nunchucks around. And just for those that don't follow Hasbro Pulse's cons and all that, they've announced a Quick Kick figure for the classified line coming up. So,
Cool.
but anyways, I'm getting off track of myself here. Again, late issue 52, we have our Marvel. This is during the Marvel 25th anniversary. Got our little Joe figure in the top corner. That is the cover. The cover I'm looking at's got the Spider-Man, the black Spider-Man costume head down in the bottom corner logo box where the UPC symbol goes. So let's get some thoughts on this. And since Jared's got the book open there to that cover, let's go ahead and see if I can do this right. Takes me a minute. There we go. Jared,
Yo.
you have thoughts on that cover?
Well, I like it. It is a Zek no Beatty. I think this is just Zek. I think inking Zek himself on this one, which shows a little bit. It's still great. You have that martial arts action. Once Quick Kick came out, of course, we wanted to mix him in with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. It has a lot of energy and movement with the nunchucks, which I really like. I like the green to yellow fade from top to bottom, and then by putting the G.I. Joe logo in yellow, it really makes it pop out of that green. And just good energy. It's great Zek work. I think if Beatty had inked it, we would have gotten a little bit more of. It looks a little sketchy in parts, like certain lines aren't are very thin and not connecting. I think Beatty would have polished that up a bit and maybe gotten Quick Kick's face is a little bit mushed. I think Beatty could have evened that out, but still, this is a Zek era cover of Ninja on, well, I don't know if you consider Quick Kick a ninja, but martial arts action, and I think it's really cool.
Very nice. And yeah, I was going to ask about Quick Kick's face. It looked a little off there or something, but nice explanation. That's, I know I should go to the artist. Dave, do you have thoughts on this cover?
Yeah, very impressed with this cover, actually. Yeah, what I love about it is I also like the green that goes down to the yellow / lighter green. And yeah, a really dynamic cover, and I love the way he's got the nunchucks twirling, I guess is the word to describe it. Looks like Storm Shadow is going to be missing him with that punch. He's taking a swing. I'm not sure he's going to connect there. No, really, really nice cover. I think I like it.
And Brad, what are your thoughts on this cover?
Well, it as I say a lot of times, it gets the job done. It's got a real. I like the sense of motion, particularly with the nunchucks. The one that Quick Kick is holding in the foreground, he's spinning it, and it's got a good sense of movement. You kind of can sort of see it spinning around, which is difficult to do with just a drawing to convey movement, things like that. I think all the Beatty and well, in this case, just Zek, but Beatty and Zek together or separately, they always do a really good job of communicating motion in their art, which I think really stands out in this cover. And it's Snake Eyes and Quick Kick squaring off. So right away, I'm interested because you're getting these Enter the Dragon, Enter the Ninja vibes, and the scene in the comic is quite fun, if a little abbreviated, but it does sort of hint at what happens in the book, even though as we get into the book, we find it's just a small part of the story. And for my mind, maybe not the most, the biggest grabber of the issue, but still a pretty good representation of what goes on.
Very nice. I'm still learning how to control these controls. And before I go, my thoughts. Kathy has joined us over in the chat. I met over on the on Jared's. She shows up all the time over on Jared's stuff. So in the Longbox Crusade, let's try and remember the name of your guys' show network. something long, something and a long dong duck. Anyways, hey Kathy, glad you could join us. And you guys in the chat, if you have thoughts or anything on the cover, please feel free to throw it in there. I can read them off on the air. As far as myself, yeah, I do like this cover. You guys have all said it's just a magnificent Zek on Zek. And yeah, I like that. It's got the motion going. It's basically something out of the issue itself. As I've commented before, I like when it's a scene from the book brought to the cover instead of just some generic picture they've put on there, basically. Like I said, I don't know about Quick Kick's face, as Jared talked about. It looks like a little smushed or something, but not bad. And Storm Shadow looks magnificent. Yeah, it looks like he's throwing a blow at Quick Kick, and if we were there, he may be missing Quick Kick and actually punching us in the face. So that's always nice. So very, very good. Let's get some numbers on this. Out of 1 to 5 Yojo Colas, 1 being it's crap, 3 being average, and 5 being something that you want to blow up and hang up on your wall, like I know Kevin's done with a couple of the covers. Let's get some numbers on this. Jared, let's go ahead and start with Jared. 1 to 5 Yojo Colas.
I missed the Beatty polish, but it's still very solid, so I will be dropping a 4.
Very nice. Yeah, I know with Zek Beatty, it always starts at a 4, so I was wondering.
Yeah,
this only have
still
half
gets to 4.
Does it start with a 2 and go up? Oh. Very nice. And let's go ahead and go to Brad. Out of 1 to 5 Yojo Colas. 3?
You can't see it if you're just listening to the podcast, but I am doing 3 figures here. If this was Inglorious Bastards, I would actually fool the Nazis by holding up the fingers.
We got a 4 and a 3, and Dave 1 to 5.
3.5.
3.5. Because again, unlike the Long Box Crusade Network, we don't mind hazards on the show. I know it's bothering Jared over there, but that's
we love a 0.5 on Signal of Doom, so I'll bring that across.
Plus down in Australia, aren't the cans bigger down there anyway? So it technically would be 3.5, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was leaning between a 3 or a 4 myself, so I'm going to join Dave and give it a 3.5 also.
Cool.
So just because again it's my show, so I can do that. So a 3.5 for me. So not bad. I say I probably would have pushed it up to a 4 if we would have had the full Zek. Shh, you hush over there. Keep drawing Cobra Commander and hush. See if you're drawing the hood and Cobra Commander, I'll give you a little leeway, but since you're not, just hush. No. But yeah, no, if it'd been a full Zek Beatty, it definitely would have been pushed up to a 4. But yeah, Quick Hick's face being smushed like that drops it down just a little bit for me. So now let's go back to the issue itself. As I started to say earlier, this is called Snap Decisions. The cover date was October of 1986, but to buy this, you had to be around on July the 8th of 1986. The cover price was 75 cents. Writer, as normal, was Larry Hama. The penciler was Rod Wiggum. Inker, Andy Mashinsky. Letterer, Joseph Rosen. Colorist, George Roussos. Editor on this was Bob Harris. And the cover, as we've already been told, is Mike Zeck. The synopsis for this one, Spintor lands at Cobra Island while Cobra Commander tries his first attempt to have him assassinated. Failing that, a day or so later, he has the returning Zartan and company attempt to kill him disguised as G.I. Joes. Once again failing, because that's what Cobra Commander does, Spintor forces him to work with him to attack the Joes now that they know where the pit is. Speaking of the pit, continued from a couple of issues ago, Storm Shadow makes his presence known to the Joes and has a heart-to-heart with Snake Eyes, who gives him the key to his cabin. Or the key to his heart, one of the two, I forget which. Finally, Hawk returns from his meeting in Washington and reveals to the Joes that the G.I. Joe program has been suspended until a full investigation of the Springfield incident, in quotes, has been completed. And that is G.I. Joe number 52. So it looks like this will be the last issue of G.I. Joe as they're being suspended and broken apart. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go and talk about
this. Is it. This is it. The final issue.
Let's go ahead and move things around. And this time, let's start with our guest of honor, Dave. Do you have thoughts on this issue?
Very positive. Great continuation as it's been going. I did read this a few weeks ago and went back and reread it again last night. And a really nice issue. And they weave in the Serpentor stuff. I mean, and one of the things that made me laugh so much in this issue was Baroness fangirling over Serpentor. It was just so funny because, like, it just seems to be rare that she's like this, but she just loves Serpentor. And I also like the shenanigans between Serpentor and Cobra Commander and Storm Shadow. I didn't see the reconciliation between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes so early. So yeah, really strong issue, and continuing in a vein of a series of strong issues.
Oh yeah, that's what we've said. Yeah, this era of G.I. Joe is one of the best. So definitely. Let's go over and see if he's got pants on yet. Nope, still not. Brad, do you have thoughts on this issue?
It's Sunday. It's Sunday afternoon. It's raining out. You're telling me I'm supposed to wear pants here too?
Yeah, well, it's not raining here, and it's not Sunday for Dave. So Dave's in the future.
Oh boy. Maybe I should have said I was busy today. I can't make it today, Aaron. Sorry. I've said off the top, I've been away a while. Aaron's restraining order was overturned on appeal, so I missed issues 50 and 51, which are some pretty solid issues. And as the culmination of that second great year of G.I. Joe, more than a year, really, it was issues 34 to 50. So, 16 months, I guess, with 50 and I guess to a degree 51 felt more like a bit of a coda to the events of 49-50. And I've said in the past, this is sort of right around the time was starting to part ways with the comic. I still read it. maybe not as voraciously as before. Before I'd read an issue multiple times over the course of the month. Here on in, I'd pretty much read it, bag it, and board it, and file it away. So as a result, I'm not quite as familiar with issues 52 onwards. So reading this one again felt a lot more fresh and new for me than it probably did back when I first read it in '86. It's a really good example of some nice structured plotting. In television, you'll have your A plot, which is your main plot, your B plot, which is the secondary, and the C, which is the minor. And we kind of have all of those here. We have Serpentor and Cobra Commander maneuvering around each other, each trying to gain the upper hand or the upper rattle, I guess, on each other. You got Storm Shadow and his encounter with the Joes and that whole resolution, and then you have Hawk coming in to tell them the bad news. So there's constantly something to shift the story to keep things fresh, and it gives us this nice pause between the more heavy issues with a lot of action. There's not really a lot of action in this one. It's largely a lot of talking. There's a little bit of a fight between Quick Kick and Storm Shadow and some of the other Joes, but it's mostly that pause, before things start picking up again. And you need that kind of thing, particularly in a long form ongoing story. Not every episode, not every issue can be all action, I guess, unless it's the cartoon, in which case you need the action in every episode. But we'll get to that. And you notice that with a lot of serialized stories in the comics, but also on TV, where you have to have these little threads kind of planted throughout to fill in the runtime, so the overall story doesn't advance as far as it would otherwise. But I gotta say, the stuff I most like here, and most surprisingly so, given my opinion as expressed on this podcast many times in the past about characters like Zartan and Dr. Brainfart and Kojam and Xanax, and now Sir Padless, is the parts I liked the most was everything involving Serpentor. And I think now looking back on it, I really have an appreciation for the job that Larry Hama does, commendably so, in making the character work. He's not the "this I command" cartoon character of the cartoon, obviously, but he's very shrewd and calculating. He usurps Cobra Commander's authority right from the get-go. He sees the ambush coming and he circumvents it while behaving like he's the loyal trooper, the loyal soldier who's just so happy to be in the presence of Cobra Commander. And then Cobra Commander complains that he's usurping his authority by performing manual labor with the troops. And it does set up one of the better conflicts that I can recall to come over the next 20 or so issues, leading up to the Cobra Island Civil War storyline. It's very cleverly done. I feel like in the case of characters like Zartan, I think with Zartan, I felt like it took a while for Larry to really kind of get a sense of how to make him work. But here it feels like right away he knew how he was going to play Serpentor and play Serpentor as a foil for Cobra Commander, and not coming in right away and taking over like he does in the cartoon, but kind of working his way into it. And to my recollection, which again, part of it's age, a lot of it's also just distance, a little fuzzy over the next little while as to what comes next. So reading this issue was a real pleasure, because I didn't really have any sense of what was happening beyond it. I could quote panel references and covers and decisions storytelling wise for the first 50 issues, not so much the next one. So it's almost kind of like reading a new book for me.
That's a good thing. That's good that you get that you've read it before, but it's been so long ago and you didn't really care as much. Now reading it again, it's like reading it fresh. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I've read the first 50 issues of this comic probably more than anything else I've read in my entire life. But the from 51 on, it's more, I'm reading it and I'm kind of taking a little bit more out of it than I did before. So I'd said that for me the great era in G.I. Joe comics was issue 22 to 33, with 34 to 50 being the next big great era. But there's still a lot of good stuff to come, so I'm a little more optimistic about what comes next than I was when we were getting closer to 50, which for me just kind of felt like a culmination of like, okay, at this point I'm going to have to really work overtime to say nice positive things, which is kind of my stock and trade on this podcast, being Mr. Positive. So I want to make sure I can kind of maintain that. But this was a good one, and there's There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on with this, but it's the Serpentor stuff was the biggest surprise. So going forward, that's kind of the thing I'm probably be looking a little closer at to see how it all plays out.
Right on, good. I'm glad you're kind of turning around on Serpentor, and not quite as down on it as you may have been in the past. So good. That's good to hear.
Even I can change.
Hey, there you go. See, we can all change. Speaking of changing, I don't know what's got to do with anything, but Jared, very nice Cobra Commander you got going on there.
Thanks, sir.
Thoughts on this issue?
Wow, hearing you guys talk about it really made me wish I'd read it. It sounds great. It does. Okay, so
okay, my turn. So my thoughts on this issue.
All right, so yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of Brad, so just copy paste that, and I'll just add that some of the things I really liked. I liked how we mentioned last issue, which was really, if I remember correctly, a let's sell some new toys issue. It was a bunch of vehicles in the swamp and this and that. But remember, we talked about seeing Storm Shadow like sneak out from the vehicle and into the air duct. And we were like, oh, where is this going? It was really, really cool to see that pay off. It's always cool to see him reconnect with Snake Eyes in a positive way. I'm trying to get my timelines straight in my head. I'm wondering, is this about the time that we get the new version of Storm Shadow action figure where I think he's actually a Joe with the gray?
I think it was right after this.
Not too long after this.
I think it was the next year.
Okay. So I was wondering, I wonder how this fits in the timeline. And I knew somebody here would know. But I really appreciated that. It was fun to see the Joes, doing their martial arts training and all that stuff. That was just cool to see. Some of my favorites were in there, like Stalker and, of course, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Quick Kick. So all that stuff was cool, but absolutely right, Brad. The limelight of this issue is in the machinations inside Cobra. That's their downfalls, that they always screw each other, right? So, it's really just unique and refreshing to see this new leader come in. And not only is he more charismatic and natural in his leadership, and everyone loves him, including Baroness, but it's just neat to see, Cobra Commander trying to figure out, how do I get rid of this guy without having a full-scale revolt on my hands against, it's like the chess match between him and Serpentor, who's thinking about 2 steps ahead, going, okay, this guy's clearly trying to get rid of me. So it's just kind of fun to watch the chess match, that it's almost like Cobra Commander, at least the version we have here right now, can't possibly win. Over in G.I. Joe Chronicles, The Devil's Due Years on the Long Box Crusade Network, we just finished the first 43 issue. That was the first full arc when they brought it back in 2001. And Cobra Commander is a lot shrewder there. In fact, spoiler alert, near the end of the run, he actually defeats Serpentor himself. And that was really cool to see. So it's neat to kind of see where he starts. Cobra Commander, I'm talking about, where he starts to where he is now, to the absolute buffoon he is in the cartoon, where he will eventually become it down the road in the Devil's Due. It's neat to see him develop. So those are my thoughts.
Very nice. And just to follow up, the Storm Shadow with the gray patches on his costume, whatever, came out in the 88 line. So it's 2 years after this.
2 years after. Okay, so we're probably just planting the seeds for that right now. That's interesting. Okay.
Of course, in the comics, he's never been a full Cobra. I mean, he's wore the Cobra costume, but he's always, from issue 26 and 27, we found out that he's not a true Cobra. He's only there for his own means and to find out who.
I've got a question. I've got a question. So, I really liked Storm Shadow in this. So, would Larry have had any direction from Hasbro in flipping Storm Shadow, or did he have that freedom because Storm Shadow was kind of a grey character?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's probably Larry. And because I know, from what I understand, they just gave him the toys or designs or whatever for the toys, and he came up with the file cards and came up with a lot of their backstory. So yeah, I got you, because it is really cool to see Storm Shadow is much more sympathetic
in this issue, like because he's sort of like shifting to at least
Right.
neutral,
Yeah, and like I say, and that's one difference. I talked with Buzz Dixon over about here a while back about the cartoon, and he said, yeah, they didn't pay attention to the comics. They got a lot of the comics, but they didn't really pay attention to what Larry was doing.
Mhm.
They were on their own trajectory. They just got the information from Hasbro, and that's why in the cartoon, Storm Shadow was more of a hardline Cobra, more of a bad guy, if you will. Where in this book, like I said, from the second year on, they kind of explained his motives, and since then he's never really been a bad guy.
Yeah,
I would say he's always
Well,
been.
even in the cartoon, he had that issue with the episode with Spirit, remember? And they kind of like team up a little bit, but that's in the face of some other problem. I forget what, they were drowning or something. Yeah.
In the cartoon, he's a bad guy, but he still has honor. He's still an honorable bad guy. So cool. I mean, so I'm sure a lot of this, him becoming a Joe, is probably on Larry.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have the time and the money to go to, mainly the money to go to comic conventions, but if anyone on our panel especially goes to comic conventions, I don't know anyone else who go to comic conventions, but maybe he can, if he thinks about it. That's two questions I would like for you to ask Larry if you get a chance to talk to him. Yeah. One, was the Storm Shadow, was this his idea or was this something from Hasbro?
Mm-hmm.
And two, how he got away with not including Cobra Law.
All right. They're on my docket.
That's one thing I've always been curious about, because he gets these, I was going to say requests. I don't know how it came across, but he got these things from Hasbro where here's new toys, here's new vehicles, work them into your book.
Yeah.
And we never saw that with Cobra Law. So I'm just curious how he got away with that. But so yeah, maybe we can get an answer from Jared. Maybe we can find out at some point.
Come on,
but
Jared.
Anyways, my thoughts on this issue. No, you guys have said, summed it up perfectly. It's a great issue. It's like we've talked about before. It's kind of one of those mind cleanses or mouth cleanses or whatever. After we've got all this battle going on, and now this issue's kind of there was that little skirmish between Storm Shadow and the Joes where he stopped them all and said, "No, I'm going to talk to my brother." But this is kind of a palate cleanser. That's the phrase I was looking for. A palate cleanser before the next battle starts up, and we got kind of a lull in battle. We got a lot of talkie. We find out that the Joes are being suspended or whatever, and which is kind of setting up their new trajectory here in a couple of issues. I didn't buy this one off the stand. Like I said, I got started. My first issue is issue 58, which is coming up in about 5 months or so. 6 months is my first issue I bought off the stand. And then I went back and bought all these in back issues. So this was a back issue I bought when I first got it. But yeah, it's a great storyline. Like you guys have said, I like how Serpentor is easing his way in. He's not just, I'm the new leader, this I command. He's easing his way in, and he's working with the troops and making them, think he's one of them. So they're going to be more willing to follow him instead of just commanding him like another hooded or masked Cobra commander the commander we know happens to do. So I do like the way Serpentor is kind of ingraining himself into the troops. And again, he's got all these military leaders' memories and things into his head. So I do like that he's like, you know what? They've got that giant X there for me to land. Oh, wait a minute. I know what he's going to do. And he's like, okay, pilot, land on the mark, but keep rolling. And I like the pilot. He's like, keep rolling? Don't hit the brakes till I tell you. And he almost ran to Cobra Commander and stops at the last second. He jumps down and hugs Cobra Commander close. No, I'm embracing you. I feel like I found a long lost brother. Like, we can't get a clear shot. And then all the civilians come running out. And they're like, and yeah, what I think was Jared was talking about, Baron was all, isn't he magnificent, Destro? And yeah, bottom of page 4, it's just Baron is just looking at Serpentor with awe and love and whatever else and respect and all that. It's just fantastic. And I do like, Serpentor is forcing Cobra Commander to go along with them, and again, slowly petting himself in the leadership position. So I do like that. I thought that was fantastic. We do like Storm Shadow that finally, as we talked about, 39, wherever it was when Storm Shadow snuck aboard the swamp skier and slid out and snuck into the Joe pits. And this finally pays off after a couple of issues. I do like when they let Storm Shadow leaves, and I'm going to it because I forget who it was now. Oh, Barbecue's like, I guess we just forget about security now. You know, Zartan's escaped, but we let a known Cobra agent walk out of the pit, and Scarlet just knocks him out or knocked him to the floor. He's like, what was that for? I think she may have been a little harsh since Barbecue doesn't know the story, if you will, between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. As far as he's concerned, Storm Shadow is a Cobra. So, I mean, in fact, he's got Cobra's logo right on his chest. So I think it's a fair question by Barbecue. I think getting punched was a little harsh.
Fiery Scarlet. You know.
Gotta love her.
Yeah.
And then, when the Dreadnoks come busting in on the Cobra Commander, and the Dreadnoks come tumbling over the window, the one dressed up as Shipwreck comes stumbling over, and it's just fantastic the way that, they come in disguise. Oh, you know what? Keep those disguises. We can use that as part of his other failed assassination plot of Serpentor. And again, Serpentor plays that up. That was a great idea, Cobra Commander. Thank you for showing me this. And again, lost everybody. Hit the wrong button. There we are. And Cobra Serpentor is doing a great job of just slowly inserting himself, and not, like I said, just not demanding he become the Cobra Emperor, but making people want to follow him. So even though there wasn't a lot of action, it was a great story. It was a great book, great issue. And I like the ending with Storm Shadow, or Tommy, sitting there at the location of Storm Shadow or Snake Eye's old cabin with Timber, watching the sun, set. And then there's also, this says the next issue is Cobra attacks the pit. There's also mention of these special missions, which came out the previous week or previous 2 weeks ago. Last week. The previous week special missions, number 1, it came out, which we just talked about over on Bravo Team. From the time this actually gets aired on the podcast, me and Dave talked about Bravo Team. About special missions over on Bravo Team. So
good to see a little ad for it as well,
Yeah, so they're reminding people that, hey, we got this new book out there. Go ahead.
I wonder how much they sold, how many issues they would have sold. I imagine a lot.
Yeah, I don't have sales data for that. I'm not.
Do you reckon they would have sold 500,000 back in the day?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Because I think it was a best-selling book, G.I. Joe.
Well, that's why they got.
Yeah.
This time,
It was keeping Marvel afloat for a while.
Right.
It was extraordinarily popular. I mean, they did a lot of licensed books back then, but G.I. Joe is the only one that really landed. Like I was thinking about this the other day, and as one does, because I'd been getting the Marvel had been reprinting the original Star Wars Marvel comics, and the most recent reprint of it came out, and that was Star Wars, and that lasted 106 or 107 issues. Whereas G.I. Joe lasted 150.
Yeah.
150, whatever. And with G.I. Joe, you also have to throw on special missions, which ran for 28 issues. And then you have to throw in things like the Order of Battle and the yearbooks and the G.I. Joe Transformers. So you're looking at about 200 comics that were sold just with the G.I. Joe name on it. And I mean, I guess the next one that might have come close would have been Transformers. And that one only lasted about 80 issues. So it was a huge seller, and this was actually slightly segueing into what I was going to add, because I have the original issue here, and Kevin usually does this, but there's an ad for American Comics out of Warrenton, Virginia, and you can't really see it here, but right at the top they have a little window box specifically highlighting G.I. Joe on it. You can kind of see issue 2 there, and it says G.I. Joe hottest comic of the 1980s. And issue 1 they're selling for $15. Issue 2, which is a reprint, which they specify as a second printing of G.I. Joe, they say it looks the same, but it's much cheaper, goes for $10. Whereas by comparison, a first printing of G.I. Joe number 2 goes for $40. So
wow,
and that's $40 in 1986, which is
It's a lot of money back
substantially
then.
more. Yeah, I have the
Mm.
second issue, and I paid $20 for it in 1985, and my parents thought I was insane to want to spend $20. It was either birthday or Christmas money for my grandparents. I mean, $20. I could have bought some GI Joe vehicles. It's a lot of
That is a
action
lot of
figures
money
for
back
20
then. 20
bucks.
bucks
Yeah.
back then. Yeah, that's
yeah,
a lot. But
yeah.
hey, you needed it. You needed it like oxygen.
Yeah, well, I mean, they didn't reprint them. They didn't do trade paperbacks back then. It was
Exactly.
the
No
floppy book,
digital,
and
no
then
trades. Yeah,
that was
you
it.
had to.
So,
Yeah, the
so yeah,
closest
it
they
was
had
it
was
was a big seller. It was a big seller, and the fact that it began in 1982 and ended in 1994. I mean, just looking at that span culturally, how different things were. You know, those 8-10-year-old kids who bought the first issues of the comic in 1982 were in their 20s, early to mid 20s by 1994. So
I've got a question. Did G.I. Joe go to Desert Storm like in the early 90s or not? Or did they steer away from that kind of stuff?
Did they go where?
To Desert Storm. Remember Desert Storm
Oh,
in Iraq and
yeah.
stuff?
not directly, but there was a storyline in like issue 106, 107 or so that sort of mirrored Desert
Right.
Storm, and there's
Cool.
a lot of big things and controversial things happen in the comic in that run. I do remember. I didn't read it when it first came out. I was out of the comic by then, but it was when I was going around trying to buy up back issues that I had missed years later, and that's one of the things that led me to this podcast was all that sort of stuff. But they kind of did mirror it at the time, I think, because
That's cool.
it was because Desert Storm being the first, full scale military conflict since the Vietnam War, I felt like they kind of had to address it, and they did.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because I remember it. I remember it on our TV screens, and I wanted to be. I think I've mentioned before, Aaron. I wanted to be a bomberman, bombing those installations. I was hooked in because that was like 24/7 coverage. Because as you say, it was like one of the first conflicts, since Vietnam. The US was involved in, and I was hooked. So I was thinking, what a perfect opportunity for G.I. Joe to maybe parachute in or something and do some damage.
But yeah, the mid '80s, as Brad was saying, yeah, it was G.I. Joe was big. Yeah, they had the versus Transformers crossover, Order of Battle, European missions. They had started reprinting the books right around this time. They did the first 13 or 18 issues or something like that. They'd reprinted. Then they also around this time also started doing the G.I. Joe Digest, which were the little books, reprinting 2 or 3 issues at a time. That's how I read a lot. As I said previously, that's how I read a lot of the early issues originally was in the digest. I'd pick them up. So.
And I may be wrong here, but I would assume that fact that they were reprinting them in some form back then while the book was still ongoing was a pretty good sign that the book was a big seller.
Yeah.
Because if there wasn't the demand for it, they wouldn't bother.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm following up on. Is that's how big G.I. Joe was? Yeah, they were reprinting digest. They started doing, what was it called? G.I. Joe. Oh, Tales of G.I. Joe. Shortly after this, where they started reprinting from the first issue, and they did the first, I want to say 13 or 18 issues before they canceled that title. So,
and we all know coming up soon, Skybound's doing the G.I. Joe license, and I saw that Skybound's also doing Transformers, and they had about 150,000 pre-orders on the first Transformers thing. It'll be interesting to see how it goes with G.I. Joe. I think G.I. Joe stands a reasonable chance of being a quiet hit,
Skybound is doing 2 lines of G.I. Joe. They're going to not restart. They're going to continue Larry Hama's Real American Hero run of issue 301. And then they're also, and I get its own continuity like they've been doing. And then in the Skybound universe, they're bringing in the Joes and Transformers and Duke and Cobra Commanders each getting a book.
It's interesting. So, did you see the Duke cover? It looks like he's on sort of like a stretcher. It's almost like he looks like he's dead almost. You don't actually see that he's dead, but he's wounded and he's being carried by the other Joes on the stretcher, I believe, from what I saw anyway.
That's issue 302. We don't know who's on the stretcher.
Oh, okay.
I think it's 302 or 303. Maybe it's 3. It's one of the for the Real American Hero books. We show Snake Eyes, Wade Collins, and a couple other Joes walking off the stretcher with someone covered up between them.
I'm looking forward to this this Skybound, G.I. Joe imprint. I'm looking forward to
I'm
it.
definitely going to check it out. So
yeah, Yo Joe.
Most definitely. But
So I had an interesting G.I. Joe find I wanted to chip in with the popularity of Joe of the 80s. I recently at a yard sale found this guy, and he was a Thundercats guy. I had all the issues of Thundercats from weren't they under the Star line, I think, Marvel Star imprint.
Yeah.
And he had all the issues of Thundercats magazine. Because you remember G.I. Joe had a magazine.
I heard about that. G.I. Joe's had a magazine.
Thundercats had its own magazine. Transformers probably did. But what was really funny was that whoever had owned them before was clearly subscribing. And so he had I think there was 6 or 7 issues of Thundercats. And then that last, then there was an issue and it still had the, what it got mailed in, the cover over the cover. And it has a little letter on it that says, "Hey, thanks for supporting Thundercats magazine with your subscription. That magazine is now discontinued. We hope you enjoy this issue of G.I. Joe as a substitute." They just switched this cat's subscription to G.I. Joe because Thundercats wasn't selling enough and Joe was hot. So they were like, "Here's some G.I. Joe." And I just got a kick out of that snapshot of some kid in 1987, what the hell?
He's like, huh?
He got me. Anyways, that just happened recently. I thought I'd chip in. I'll shut up and start doing Cobra Command again.
No, that's good to hear. I like hearing about that. I forgot about the G.I. Joe magazine. They had G.I. Joe novels right after this. Both novels, and then they also had choose your own adventure style books for G.I. Joe.
That's cool.
So he was Brad was saying, they did almost every license they could get. Jared said Thundercats, there was He-Man, there was
robotics. Does anybody remember robotics?
I
have that issue. It was written by and illustrated by the great Herb Trimpe.
In fact, I think I still have that one also. Yeah.
Silver I have it here somewhere. Yeah.
Muppet Baby, everything. And as I talked to, I was going through my collection because I'm sorting out the ones I want to get rid of, the ones I want to keep. And 80s and 90s, there was everything under the sun got a comic book. New Kids on the Block.
Muppet Babies would rule. I used to love the Muppet Babies.
Had a Muppet Babies comic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They back when Nintendo games were coming out, they had Super Mario Brothers comic and Nintendo comic, and everything under the sun had a comic, it seemed.
But that's cool, to me. I find that kind of stuff off product. It can be really cool, and it has an audience. I know that the Sonic the Hedgehog comic actually sold really well, and Richard on Signal Doom made an anti-Sonic comment last episode, and I had to pull him up on it. And I, at one point, said to him, "Rich, I may just burn your membership card if you continue with this line of logic." And he had to retract the comments because a lot of these tie-ins that we barely remember now, like G.I. Joe, we remember, but say the Sonic thing, no one remembers that, but it sold really well at the time.
Oh yeah, no, but like I say, everything back then had a tie-in. Married of Children, I have some of those. Again,
I sell comics and stuff for a comic shop on the side. I do their eBay for them, and I'm here to tell you, Sonic, it's held its value and gone up. We got a ton of money for those old Sonic comics.
Especially
there is an audience
out, and it's brought it up to a new audience. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they're it's it's those 90 kids. It's just like us being 80s kids. It's those 90s kids that got money in their pocket again and they want that back, right?
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, for sure. It's cool.
Yeah. So let's go move on to the Real American Hero for this issue. The Real American Hero is a Joe or Cobra or anyone else that does something that you think needs brought special. Try that again. It's a Joe or Cobra that needs special attention or the spotlight put on them for something they've done, or just someone you like to mention in this issue. So I'm going to go and start off this issue. My Real American Hero is, I'm going to say Storm Shadow. I'm going to get the Storm Shadow because, again, we've got more of his subplot coming on. We get that heart-to-heart with him and Snake Eyes. We get him taking out, the Joes that came up against him. So, Storm Shadow, in my opinion, gets the Real American Hero. Brad, Do you have a real American hero for this issue?
I do, and again, be prepared to be surprised. It is Serpentor.
What?
I know I am just as surprised by me as everybody else, but he 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 how do I articulate this in a way that makes me not sound like an idiot for once? He reveals himself to be a very formidable foe for both GI Joe and for Cobra Commander by his actions. He is constantly thinking. He is he's one step ahead of Cobra Commander the whole way, and even having him in his battle armor seems like almost like a little jab at Cobra Commander. Whereas before you'd think, oh, it just looks goofy snakehead guy. Now it's like he's got this golden armor. He's going to ride around on an air chariot, and he's got snakes all over the place, and it's like him deliberately messing with Cobra Commander. And it's one of those clever metatextual things that I'm probably reading way too much into here, but it works. And again, the fact that I was coming into this next phase of GI Joe prepared to be the Serpentor hater, and it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. I'll go back to Dr. Mindbender though.
And on that day, his heart grew 3 sizes larger.
It's still only about this big, but any bit helps.
Again, 3 times larger when it was. Yeah, it's still improvement.
It's still the size of a walnut. I mean, come on.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm not going to say that, but I try to be nice. It happens every once in a while. Dave, do you have a real American hero for this issue?
Highly tempted to give it to Baroness for her fangirling, but I instead will go to the object of her affection, which was Serpentor, because I as well am not overly fond of the sort of character design or even, but I think he was portrayed really well here, and I really bought into it, and the sort of simmering conflict between him and Cobra Commander. So I'm giving it to Serpentor with an honorable mention to my favorite, of course, Baroness.
Very nice. Very nice. And Jared, the George Cell Jar guy. I can't even speak. Jared, Death Probe.
I'm going to go with, let's see, was Beachhead in this issue or no?
Who?
Nah. I did read it. No, I think I'm going to join the team and have to say Serpentor with a participation trophy for Cobra Commander. Just, like, I got to kill this dude. Like, he's wasting no time in his attempts. His attempts have failed so far. But I keep an eye on Cobra Commander. But yeah, you got to give it to Serpentor in this one. He's looking good. He's riding high.
Well, there you go. And very nice. Good choices there. Yeah, both. Yeah, Serpentor is another. If I didn't choose Storm Shadow, yeah, he would have been my second choice is Serpentor. Because, yeah, as we've talked about, the way he's just, manipulating everything to make himself the Cobra, emperor, if you will, by the people's choice was just fantastic. So, great choices, guys. We're going to move on to the next section of the show, which I've stolen again from other podcasts that are better than mine. Page of art. If you have any page of art out of this book, what page would you take? So let's go ahead and let's go in reverse order this time. If you have something, Jared,
I do. I have a couple that I like in this one, but I'll play by the rules.
About time. I mean,
there's a lot of cool stuff in this one. So anyway, at the end of the day, my heart is torn between the Storm Shadow with the skull, the lightning, and the Warrior's Pass. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the one with the Dragonfly with Hawk and Wild Bill in the rain, which speaks to my heart because, like I said, that's the aircraft that my dad flew, and so that makes it special. So you know what? That one is important to me. I'll take it, and I'll leave the other stuff to you guys. Since
there you go.
I doubt anyone else is going to pick the Dragonfly page, so I will take the Dragonfly page just because I think it's really cool, and I know how hard it is to draw tech and weaponry and vehicles. So hats off again to Rod Wiggum.
Yeah, very nice. Dave, do you have a page of art out of this book that you'd like to take a page home if you could?
Jared may be very surprised, but I felt the dragonfly in the rain was by far and away the one that spoke to me.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Very nice.
when I read it last night, I instantly said to myself, "Yep, that's my page that I'm going to pick." Like seriously, I think it's a really good picture, and frankly, if I was in the States, I think I'd be parting with $300 US and picking up a dragonfly.
Hell yeah!
Because why not? Like, why not just live the life? It's a great design, and yeah, it's just a really good picture. So yeah, that's the one for me.
Very nice. And Brad, is there a page of art while those two are fighting over that one page? What page of art would you like, sir?
There is a page of art. It would be page 9, Quick Kick versus Storm Shadow.
Yep.
For a reason to stay it off the top, it's Bruce Lee versus Shokasugi in my heart. So that's why it gets it. It's a landmark moment that kind of passes a little too quickly, and I think this is the only time the two of them actually spar. So it's worth commemorating. But I would throw the page 12, the Dragonfly in the Rain, as a second choice, honestly, because it reminds me of when I lived in North Carolina back in the 80s and being really into military tech and really being into GI Joe and going to places like the Norfolk Naval Yards and going to Fort Bragg and checking those things out and seeing this equipment, these vehicles from a comic book, essentially in the real. It really gave you a sense of what they were really like. So for a nostalgic reason alone, but I think Jared deserves all the Dragonfly art from here on in. So
I didn't realize it was going to be so popular. I'm flabbergasted.
You saw the might of the U.S. military as a young child. And that's
I did.
Pretty much, yeah.
Shock and awe.
Yeah.
And for me, I've got two runner-ups. The runner-ups is page 1 because it's got Cobra Commander in the hood. Is a nice shot. And then page 8, the one right before Brad had mentioned, where Storm Shadow was kicking Barbecue and Stalker. I just like that image. But the one I'm going to take is the one that, my friend Jared left on the table. That page 15 with Storm Shadow talking about his death and his life again and all that. And it's a beautiful page. It's fantastically drawn. It's just the skulls on it and the skull in the middle of the page. And we see, Storm Shadow kind of reliving Serpentor's previous lives. It's just an awesome page. I just like that one.
Can I mention a page as well?
Sure,
it's actually a panel. I really like the last one where Storm Shadow's with Timber.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just, is it Timber or Timberwolf? Sorry. Just Timber. Yeah, I love that. I love that dog and the way they're just there looking up at the sun over the hills. It's a really nice ending to the issue, I felt.
Storm Shadow's like, hey, thanks for the key to your rubble factory.
But yeah, no, that was a nice panel. Like, yeah, I did mention him sitting there with Timber at the very end watching the sunset and the sun stream over the mountains. A very nice image. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, that was the page of art, and that's going to cover the first section. I'm going to do post box to pit, but as I said, I'll do that afterwards if I get it in there. So I forgot to mention when we were talking about the book itself, I do like, we have Serpentor's chariot shows up in here. Mindbender showing him off the chariot he built for him. And then also, I do like the page of art that I picked. I forgot to mention that Storm Shadow talking about when he got shot by the Baroness and he put himself into the Phoenix, whatever it was, and was able to revive himself. And he's got briefly had the memories of all these lies that was being forced through him as they went to Serpentor. I did like that because I remember mentioning when Storm Shadow rose out of the chamber, whatever it was, and his eyes had skulls in them, and he was speaking very mystically and like he had these other memories, and we didn't really hear much about that. But this does touch upon that, so I do like that callback to that. So very nice. Well, unless you guys have any other thoughts, we'll go ahead and take a quick commercial break. I'll play some promo for some other shows, and we'll be right back with the cartoon. All right.
That is a big gulp you got there.
Yes, it's a cup my wife made for me, a Firestorm cup.
That's
Wow.
cool.
That is cool.
It's awesome. I'm reading the John Ostrander Firestorm, by the way.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. I'd like to get him on the show, actually.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that time he was doing several books and they were all kind of had tie-ins together.
I'm also reading his Hawkman at Hawk World. I've almost finished the run. Fantastic.
He was also doing Suicide Squad at that time, which I'm covering. He did the Spectre, and there was a couple other books.
Would he be an older guy? Like, he's very prolific on Facebook. I'm going to reach out to him because you know what? Like, what's the worst he can say? No, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
Like, you know, I think he's
tried,
a
solid
writer, man. Solid writer, and paired with often really good artists as well.
Oh yeah, no, I've been trying to get him on my show because for Suicide Squad, but
has he responded
Martian
to
Manhunter run too?
Yeah, he did Martian Manhunter around that same time.
Yeah,
okay.
And then I think he did it again with Mandrake in like the early 2000s. They brought another Martian Manhunter series back, and that was legit good too.
Yeah, I think you're correct there, Jared. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also he did a really good run on Star Wars called Star Wars Legacy. He did quite a bit of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And he's I want to get him, man, for sure.
Yeah, no,
maybe I need to throw some cash at him. Throw some cash at him.
Go.
Sweeten the deal.
Well, if you're ever gonna get him to talk to you and get him on, mention my name and see if you.
I will. I'll say, hey, have you heard about Aaron over there?
My Suicide
General Head,
podcast. I'd love to get him on. Yeah, he was a magnificent writer, and he still is. But I mean, back in this time frame, he was doing late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, he had his own awesome group basically set up, and he had characters crossing over from one of his books to the other, and corporations that was mentioned one to the other. So it was very interconnected without having to read the other books. But if you read Firestorm,
yes,
and then you read Suicide Squad or Hawk World or Martian Manhunter, these other things. Oh, I'm okay. I read that over there. So very nice.
Yeah, he set up his little mini-verse.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that makes it easier when you're doing it all by yourself like that. So, or as far as the writing goes. Let's go ahead and get back to talk some G.I. Joe, which Ostrander didn't write.
No, he did not.
So let's go back to the show if you guys are ready. And welcome back to the show. Now we're going to look at G.I. Joe, the cartoon. Insert the intro. This episode was entitled Cobra Claws Are Coming to Town. This was a Christmas episode. It was directed by John Gibbs and Terry Lennon. Writer was Carla Conway and the magnificent, fabulous Jerry Conway. Again, I say that because Jerry created Firestorm, one of my favorite characters. Story was actually by Dan Thomas and Roy Thomas. First aired November the 7th, 1985. And the synopsis that I stole from Wikipedia. It's Christmas Eve, and most of the Joes have gone home for the holidays. After using special After using a special growth/shrinking ray and special toys, similar to the Trojan horse, slipped into the donated toys for charity, Cobra ends up successfully infiltrating the G.I. Joe headquarters, captures the Joes' present, and rewires the Joes' equipment. They plan on attacking Keystone City on Christmas Eve, not knowing that the Flash lives there, and to have residents believe the Joes have turned treacherous against them. So that is Cobra Claws Are Coming to Town, or as I call it, the Christmas episode. So let's get some thoughts on this. Brad, do you have thoughts on this episode?
I have thoughts on this episode, and I have to think to myself, can you imagine being the G.I. Joe crazy 12-year-old in 1985 who records this episode on the VCR, painstakingly edits out all the commercials on the fly, just so on Christmas Day after turkey and everything, he can say, I have a Christmas show we can watch as a family. And getting the whole group of everybody, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, to gather around the TV, throwing it on and just gauging their reactions. And I have to ask Jared, what was that like?
If only, my friend, if only. I was living in Germany at the time, so I was relying on people to send me VHS tapes.
Sir, okay. Thank you for catching catching on the punchline and rolling with it. I wasn't sure how you were going to respond to that, but I mean, seriously, what can you say about this episode? It's a Christmas episode. It has a shrink ray. It has tiny cobras. It has a giant Polly. It has Duke seriously macking on CoverGirl throughout. I guess because Scarlet was away, he had to go to the other girl and Joe in the team and start hitting on her. I wouldn't say it was one of a peace on earth and goodwill towards men because stuff blows up real good in this one. But as a G.I. Joe Christmas episode, it's pretty much what you'd expect for a G.I. Joe Christmas episode. And, to quote the Irishman, it is what it is. And what it is a piece of that long, not always proud tradition of the Christmas episode, which was a staple of 70s and 80s TV. And it seemed like every show that had sort of captured the audience attention did a Christmas episode. I know Chips did one, A-Team, Star Wars had Life Day. I think it's as big. It's the Christmas episode, the very special Christmas episode, is as much a tradition as turkey and stuffing as trees are. You can't have you can go to YouTube and just type in 80s Christmas special, 80s Christmas episode, and you could program a month of viewing. I don't want to get into huge specifics about it, but there is one thing I noticed that I thought was it was inadvertent or deliberate. And I have to applaud them for this if it was deliberate, because it is such a very clever way of utilizing the lesser known Joes, because you have Duke and you have Roadblock, and I guess you have Shipwreck as well, who on the cartoon were pretty up there. But you don't have Scarlet, you don't have Snake Eyes, you don't have Flint, you don't have like the A-list Joes. You got Blowtorch, you got CoverGirl, you got Dusty. These are not A-listers. And I had to wonder if this wasn't some sort of deliberate, again, metatextual thing to have the Christmas episode populated by the G.I. Joe figures your grandparents or your out-of-touch elderly aunt would gift you that you weren't exactly gunning for. It's like you wanted a Snake Eyes, you got Barbecue. You wanted Firefly, you got Crystal Ball. You wanted the Mobot, you got the Glider. It's like, oh, thanks Aunt Bessie for Tripwire. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Tripwire, but if you wanted the Ninja, you wanted the Commando Ninja. You didn't want the guy carrying the little backpack of little hockey pucks. So again, that's probably just me reading way too much into it, but I think it was kind of funny just off the top saying, well, most of the other Joes are away for the holidays visiting their family, which kind of made me go, who is Snake Eyes visiting? But again, comic continuity versus cartoon continuity.
Yes.
And it also made me wonder if cartoon Snake Eyes goes home and he takes the mask off. He's like, oh, thank God I can take that thing off. It's hard to breathe through there. You can't see anything. They stuck this visor over it. When I had the goggles, I could see better, but now they got this. Anyway, crack open a beer and sit down and watch the A-Team holiday special or something like that. So, it's funny because as I've said, with the cartoon, it is very much its own thing, and I think with this episode, it kind of does everything you would expect and hope that a G.I. Joe Christmas episode would do, with the exception of them all turning to the camera at the end and saying "Merry Christmas."
Oh, that would have been great.
That would have been a great way to end it. But as it is, I'm going to step back because I'm going to have a question for everybody after everyone said their bit, though. But I'm going to step back and let everybody say their piece about it, of which I know Jared, at least, has volumes of notes to go over.
Well, I've only got a few things. Let me mention mine real quick. So the first thought I had on this is my thought here is, you hush back there. I will mute you. I will. So I guess to be a Joe, you don't have to be very observant. I mean, while they're sitting there parked, Firefly slips up, puts that big ass bag in the back of the wagon, and none of the Joes ever notice he's doing that. And as we come to find out, there's a lot of toys that he slipped in there, apparently. So I thought that was a little, I guess, being observant of your surroundings is not something they teach you in the military. Jared? No? Didn't think so.
Nah.
I'm sure even Jared would have caught that. I mean, and this is the episode where all the G.I. Joe holiday memes come from. Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever the holiday is, there's those G.I. Joe memes. They all came from this one episode. Junkyard showed up again. Since I've got my very own junkyard now, it means something a little extra to me. And I'm waiting for the classified Mutt and Junkyard to come out. We get to find out here why Mutt is so irritable. We get a little more of his backstory being told. Again, it's just kind of a standalone story, just a Christmas story. But we also find a little more about Mutt and his past, which I thought that was endearing. As I kind of mentioned earlier, when Firefly was putting the toys in, he came with one bag and dumped one bag in the cart. And meanwhile, we're finding all these toys that are coming to life. How many damn toys was in that bag? There was a drum set along with the Trojan horse, plus all these other toys that are coming to life. Was that a bag of holding? Was that Santa's sack? How many toys did he have in there?
A bag of holding.
On Saturdays, I play D&D with my son, so I've got to mention
I
that.
love it, man. That's great.
And then my final note is a super small Polly and then super large Polly. Gotta love it. Dave, since you're not sitting rattling a piece of paper around, do you have thoughts?
Just an enjoyable episode. I loved the rattler at the start. The opening of the episode I thought was excellent. And I mean, honestly, I could just see myself if I was there, in the US, and I'm that age, I'm 10 or so, and this comes on. My parents I would have been like, I need a rattler now,
Yes.
like now, no hesitation. The episode itself is fun. Like there's a lot to enjoy. I really like Zartan. Zartan's really grown on me, and he gets a nice moment here as well when he's impersonating Duke. And they're so surprised, like Zartan's never done this before. like they're just so stunned, but that Zartan's doing exactly what he always does. But yeah, just a really fun episode. I also loved how it was actually like a little horse that came out. Like they're like, yes, let's really, really make it really obvious for the kids. And can I also say, Brad, I need to check this Chips episode out, because I remember when I was a little kid, I remember Chips being on TV, and it probably would have been the later episodes. And I always remember it like it was probably on later than I was allowed to stay up. But I've got to check out that Chips episode, the Christmas episode.
It was. I'm going to just jump in and say it was a 1979 episode called Christmas Watch. That's
all right.
Don't ask me how I know this. I'll tell you later.
Well, all I can say is I've got fond memories as a child seeing Chips. I used to love their bikes.
Yes.
So yeah. In fact, I still see highway patrol guys and go, "Oh man, they're living the life." Those guys just on the open road.
Those poor guys.
So yeah, no, really fun little episode of the show, and just another great addition to the franchise, basically. And bring out another cartoon, please, Hasbro.
Please, it's as I've been asking for years. Yeah, they need to bring another cartoon for the kids out and for us,
and also for the old people like us.
Okay, so that's everybody. Everyone's got their comments thought. Okay, let's go move on to the next. Oh, Jared. I know you're sitting there thinking, you son of a bitch.
Well, as usual, I jotted my thoughts down live as I was watching the episode. My first bullet says, singing Polly. I just left it at that. You can make your own decisions. Then, of course, I wrote down Cobra's trying to ruin Christmas for the kids. Like, how insidious! Like, to use the kids' toys. Like, this is basically toys for tots. And I don't know if they do that in Australia. I don't know if you have toys. It's a United States Marine Corps thing they do here, and probably something similar over there. I would imagine.
There is that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, that is like the harshest, darkest thing you can do. And I went ahead and cast Firefly as the Grinch. I would love to see the whole Grinch thing with Firefly as the Grinch, but since he was sneaking evil toys, and I thought he's very Grinch-like. I love to see the pit with Christmas decorations on it. That was awesome.
Yes.
Who else is awesome? Junkyard. I wrote that. It just says Junkyard is awesome. I wrote down Trojan Rocking Horse, Tiny Cobras. Where are we going with this? There was a shot. What's that?
Sell more toys. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you know it. There was a particular shot I thought was really good. It was a low angle shot of like Cobra Commander victorious in front of the pit, and it was really well rendered. I was like, that's a good shot. I was very excited to see snake armor because I had the snake armor as a kid. But then I was like, they're making it robots. They're not making it snake armor because like Duke blew the head off of that one. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess they're robots, or else this is a really dark episode.
Jojo the cartoon's gone adult.
Very much.
Yeah, I think they can either be robots or you can take it apart and put it on as armor, I believe.
Yeah, I love that toy as a kid. I wrote down Zartan Twist, who could have seen it coming, just like Dave mentioned. Shipwreck has a strange relationship with the side of beef in this one that I'm uncomfortable with. But whatever. This I have a couple of notes in here about the winter gear. It was neat to see them all in winter gear.
Right.
Destro wins the most baller looking winter gear because it still has the red disco collar, but it's a full length black trench coat, and it looks so good.
I wouldn't mind. I would sport that.
Yes, I feel like there's a figure he may have that's similar. I feel like he's got a full trench coat figure somewhere. Anyway, might have made it up in my head.
I think.
And then when Paulie got shot, and I was like, Paulie got shot. Oh no!
I hear your concern there.
Yeah, heard that. But then Paulie took a nap, and it was like the cutest thing because he was like sad nap. And I wish Kevin was here to do the sad bird noise, but he took a little nap, and I felt bad for him. Second place for the winter gear goes to the Dreadnoks. They looked really cool in their winter getup. Would love to see figures for that. I think the biggest takeaway, and it's my third to last bullet, is there's lots of awesome mix 'em up action in this. That's basically like telling the kids at home, hey, put Joes in your Cobra toys and Cobras in your Joe toys and have them fight. Like just mixing up the vehicle use and stuff kind of made it fun and interesting. Right. And I thought, that's kind of cool. Sell more toys, right? And then, of course, we get a giant Polly, which is kind of awesome. And then my last note, and it says clearly, Duke is for the ladies. I mean, leave something for the rest of us, Duke.
Yeah, he was
Duke,
definitely putting some moves on CoverGirl this episode.
My goodness, like Scarlett's gone, and Duke's like, well, batter up. Who's next on the line?
When the cat is away, the mice will indeed play.
This may be the reason there were only like 3 female members of the G.I. Joe team. The rest filed harassment suits against Duke and had to leave the service.
They quickly moved into other teams and other functions. Okay, we'll get you out of here if we have to sue Duke again. It's messy. I can see that. Oh.
That's it.
I love it.
Very nice. Well,
and isn't it fun having the contrast between the comic and the show and how different they are, and yet how complementary as well? Like it's nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I go on, Aaron.
I was just gonna say, I mean, same thing we always see. Yeah, the show's a lot more goofier, and there's a lot more bad episodes, if you will. Very cheesy, very whatever. But a lot of us came in on the cartoon, so
yeah.
As bad as it may be, it's still great television. So
it's fun.
It's fun, very much different than the seriousness, of the comic what Larry was doing. And like we said, part of that is because Larry was doing the comic by himself, as far as plotting, writing, and all that. Where the cartoon is, a writer's room and all these. This one had the story was by one person, and actually written by a different guy, and so.
And they've got to sell those toys.
And as we've said, it's sell toys.
Well, speaking of toys, speaking of segues, my question was going to be for everybody on the panel, but I kind of want to ask Aaron first, since he is general head here. So much of our memories of G.I. Joe are toy related, and because the toy is the central core to this whole fandom. Right. My question in mind with this episode, Aaron, is do you have a favorite G.I. Joe related Christmas memory you'd like to share?
A favorite G.I. Joe besides this episode?
Besides this episode, of course.
Honestly, not really, because by this point, I was buying these figures on my own. My mom thought I was getting too old to be get toys, so they were starting to, I was 14, 15, 16 at this point, at this time frame. So my mom thought I was getting too old for toys and stuff, so she didn't buy me as much as when I was younger. So
little did she know that you're still talking about it.
here I am, 30 years later, and
How about recently though? I mean, you when you on Christmas morning when you grab your coffee and go sit by the tree, do you ever look at the packages and go, oh, there's one for me, and you pick it up and shake it and go, oh, this could be a
One
toy.
second.
This could be something. Oh, I scared him away.
He's just gone. I'm
You've
out.
upset him. You've upset him.
Yeah.
The walkout.
Yeah. Oh no, he's bringing it in. He's bringing something in. What's he got? Oh
yeah.
It's a Cobra Commander helmet.
The Cobra Commander helmet. Yes, I bought one at my wife got me one at GameStop, and that Christmas, a month or so later, my in-laws had also happened to get me a Cobra Commander helmet.
Love
So
it.
I had two, so I traded one in for the Snake Eyes helmet.
That's cool.
But yeah, this would probably be one of my favorite Christmas memories for GI Joe related. Is yes.
Can you actually put it on? Yeah, put it on.
Yeah.
Does it fit?
Put it on.
Glasses off.
See. Oh, there it is.
Oh,
Look at that.
yeah.
It's perfect.
Oh yeah.
The question though is, can you take it off now, or is it going to be stuck in him?
Hail
It's hard to
Cobra.
hear enough, so let me take that off.
Yeah. Well, I was prepared to do anything you were going to say there. We're wearing the helmet. So much respect.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, so that's probably my favorite Christmas GI Joe type memory is my in-laws. I bought me one, and then a month later was Christmas time, and my in-laws happened to get me one, which I was able to trade in for the.
That's really cool,
Snake
man.
Eyes helmet.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah,
joining us
look at us.
after a
There
brief
we go.
pause, Jared has come out with his helmet on. So
Yeah,
There we go.
Starting a trend.
There we go.
I love it. That is good. That is
Very
good.
nice.
Yeah. Wow.
Very nice, Jared.
Wow.
I never miss a GameStop sale.
I tell you what, I wish I could find on the Christmas tree, Baroness. That'd be nice.
Well, there you go. That would be a Christmas miracle. I also got the sword, the Snake Eyes sword from that line. Also,
Little Jimmy, what do you want for Christmas? I want Baroness.
the action figure. No.
No.
Not really.
That is gold.
So to move Brad's question on.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Well,
Dave
I didn't collect GI Joe back in the 80s. I was aware of it, but I didn't collect it. But I was a big, really big Transformers fan. I remember my mum got me Jetfire. And I still remember it because it was just such an impressive toy. And it was right at the height of when I was into Transformers, which the same as you guys were into G.I. Joe at the same time. You're at the absolute peak, and then you get this really fantastic toy. And I still remember it. I was just like, it was just excellent. So it definitely, although it would be nice under the Christmas tree this year to have Snake Eyes Desert Commando. I'm going to mention that to my girlfriend, every day until it actually arrives. And oh, what a surprise! Who could have picked it?
Actually, not to brag or make you jealous, Dave, but I still have my Jetfire.
Yeah, that's good, man. No,
he's one of the only Transformers for my collection I kept when I did.
Do you remember he had both the Autobot and the Decepticon? From memory, I think it changed with the heat or something.
They had those stickers that you're supposed to heat up, and it would let you know what it's.
Yes,
what it was,
and because he was both. Remember, he's originally a Decepticon that turns into an Autobot.
I don't think they did the stickers on those. Mine did not come with it. Mine came.
Okay, I'm operating off memories from 1985, man. So let's not rely on it too much. But it was a fantastic figure.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it still is. It's in the box out of harm's way right now.
I now am jealous. You're like, it still is. I play with it every night, Dave.
It is. It's the one I hung on to. I was clearing out a lot of stuff, and I had all these vintage Transformers I was selling for a substantial amount of money on eBay. But I years ago I'd made the mistake of selling off my original Star Wars toys
Right.
and regretted it. So I said to myself, if I ever sell anything off again, I have to go through the collections first and pick out the ones I want to hang on to at all costs. So I can at least, when I do regret selling them, I can at
Well,
least say, well, at least I hung on to these core ones. So
I had a pretty substantial Transformers collection, which my mother gave away to a family friend when she felt that I'd outgrown it, and let's just say I had it, you know.
yeah.
I love it.
Picture it, Christmas 1987. That my most vivid memory is odd because it's not even one of my favorite sets. Because when I look back and I think about favorite sets that I owned, it would be like Whale, Battle Platform, Hydrofoil, Sky Striker. But I'm thinking those must have all been birthday things because the one that sticks out at Christmas was, I think it was Christmas of 87, right before 86. Christmas of 86. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it was right before we went to Germany. We did something we very rarely do. We went and spent Christmas with my grandparents at their house. And so I'm thinking, I'm old enough at this point. I was probably about 10 or 11. And I was like, well, if you got to travel to grandpa and grandma's house, you're going to get a few small things. And, that's going to be that. And so I'm mentally prepared for that. And then I got a pretty decent sized box and I tore into it. And it had the toss and cross, the bridge layer with toll booth and all that. And cool. It for some reason, I always have that memory of that one. I was so excited about it because it was one of those, it was a Joe vehicle that it's like the one that you didn't know you wanted.
Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't even know it existed. I was like, what the hell is this? And then my brother started explaining it because he's 5 years older. And he was like, this is what they use in the military to actually cross gaps and chasms so you can get your troops across. And I was like, this is really, and then like the mechanics of it it worked really well. And I just love the toss and cross. So that's like a weird vehicle to bring up for Christmas, but like I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I didn't know it was a vehicle. And I open up and I go, I've never seen this before. This is interesting, and then I'm learning and I really loved it. So that would be it. And then throughout the modern years, luckily, my wife's a big collector of He-Man and She-Ra. And so it's good that she's into an 80s collection vibe as well. So almost every Christmas, Brad, you're talking about like even modern day. Mm-hmm. Like last Christmas, there was a box under that tree. I had no idea what was in it. And it turned out she had found a bunch of the G.I. Joe, the reaction figures. So they're kind of more in the Star Wars mold.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, those were overpriced from the get-go.
Yeah.
But she found about 15 of them at Ollie's for $2.99 a piece. So she bought them all.
Wow.
Put them in a box. And so I got to open G.I. Joe figures on Christmas morning.
Nice.
That's cool.
And so that's always been a nice thing, though, because she, like I said, she does the He-Man, She-Ra thing. So we kind of have an endless childhood Christmas thing going because I'm always finding that kind of stuff for her and she's finding G.I. Joe stuff for
Very
her.
nice.
Perfect marriage.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, those reaction figures are, in my opinion, and a lot of people, are a little pricey for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my wife picked me up the Arctic bazooka and a Lady J figure she had found at Target. And
Lady J, pretty easy to find in general.
Yeah, she picked up. She'd heard me. I was editing one of the episodes and we was talking about bazooka, and she was at Target and saw. She, I remember Aaron talking. Let me get that.
Bazooka's cool.
So, again, check your Ollie's $2.99 Joe reactions. I mean, that's not bad.
Here,
that's probably what they should. They probably should have been at like an $8-9 price point tops.
Yeah.
But well, I don't run the business books at Reaction, so I can't say. But
I think it was articulated. Chad says the Reaction toys are mainly for Reaction fans.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know Dave, you're talking about Jetfire. Skybound has the Transformers license, and they've got a comic out called what was it called? Void Rivals, and Jetfire shows up in that first issue.
Yes, he does. And I was reading it thinking, what the hell is this comic? And all of a sudden, Jetfire just showed up and flew away. And I was like, what an awesome cameo from Jetfire. He literally does. He just stands up and goes, okay, I'm out of here, and just flies off.
Let me throw in one quick my Christmas memory because it really only is one G.I. Joe related. one I have, and it happened 40 years ago, Christmas of 1983. Yes, I'm old. Uh, and it was my one and only GI Joe Christmas. 1984 was all about the Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
1985 was about a turntable and some record albums, but 1983 was the year I just got GI Joe stuff, and I'd gone through the Sears catalog. And in Canada, we had a store called Consumers Distributing, which is a great source for GI Joe stuff. And I just circled all the things I would have liked, thinking, I've been good, I've been pretty good this year. Maybe I'll get something. But on Christmas morning, I woke up to a big box under the tree, which I knew had to be the GI Joe headquarters command center, but I couldn't be 100% sure because I thought there was no way they're gonna might be that thing. But so I was thinking maybe it's just ski boots or something like that, something lame like that. But ripped it open and it was the headquarters command center, and I was a happy kid that day. But that wasn't the end of it, because as I went through the other gifts, I also opened up the Vamp Mark
Nice.
One, and I also got the Mobot, which those three things alone for an '80s kid was a huge haul. And
Wow.
like I'd said it earlier before we started recording, the headquarters would have set your parents back $30. The Vamp would have been 10. The Mobot would have been 20. So that's $60 in 1983 dollars, which is probably close to $200 now. Yes. So, but the thing is, that was the only Christmas where I got GI Joe stuff, and I wasn't really into it in 1982. And as I said, by 1984, it was Transformers, and then by 85, I was kind of out of toys. But now that I've started, now that I've started getting into the classified figures, I'm crossing fingers and hoping that this Christmas I might get some GI Joe related surprises under the tree. But
maybe a Desert Snake Eyes would be good.
Maybe that Desert
I heard it
Snake
was good.
Eyes. Yeah, I hear.
Come on, man.
I've heard about it. Yeah,
I need it. I need it bad.
Exactly. Brad, I just want to say, Brad, that is an awesome question that you brought to the show, man. That was a lot of fun, and
I gotta say, it was the Christmas spirit of Cobra Claws are coming to town that really
made me think about
it. And I guess people on the Headcast Facebook page and will probably want to chime in with their Christmas memories too. So
wonderful. I was like, oh, I'm so funny with my jokes about the cartoon. You had a very good and insightful question that we could all answer with personal memories, and all the people listening. I'm vamping for your show now, Aaron. All the folks listening, man, would love to hear what your GI Joe Christmas is.
Yes,
that'd be great.
Yeah, and see, that's why I keep even with his Serpentor hate and his Zartan hate. And
he comes through
every once in a while. Once every 6 months. Every time we start an episode, Aaron thinks, is this going to be the episode where I ask Brad to never come back? Or is this going to be the one where I decide to keep him around for another one?
Well, he lets me come on, so I think basically anyone's available if I'm being called into service.
Much,
It's kind of like when the draft gets really desperate,
Oh crap! We're gonna get on. Well, Kevin's out this week. I haven't heard from Jared. And
you know what it is? It's if you know the '80s movie Cobra, the great Stallone '80s movie Cobra.
I know it well.
When the cops are all gathered outside the grocery store where the crazy guy's taking everybody hostage, and they don't know what to do, and they go call the Cobra. And that's what it's like. It's like we've tried everything else. Everything else failed. We got to call on the guy who's got Cobras etched into the handles of his guns, because we're all out of. We have nothing else to bring to the table. So we're gonna have to bite the bullet and call this maniac.
What a goddamn movie that was! I love that movie.
My goodness.
No, that was a good movie.
Saw it in the theater myself, actually. It was.
Me too, man. Me too, dude. Me too. Back in the day, yep.
Got my dad to take me and everything.
Oh, very nice.
Great time.
I guess it's a appropriate conversation since it's called Cobra and we're talking GI Joe. We fought Cobras.
I hear rumors of a director's cut, though.
Ooh.
That the original version of Cobra, the theatrical version, was an hour and 50 minutes, and the version that they released is 90 minutes, just under 90 minutes. And the reason for that is Top Gun had come out a couple of weeks before and was doing huge, stupid amount of money business. And I guess was it Canon who did Cobra, I think, or
sounds about right.
Somebody did, and they panicked, and they're like, we're not going to make our money back with a 2-hour movie. We got to cut it down to 90 minutes and squeeze in more showings a day. So they kind of took a machete a machete to it and just sort of hacked out all this stuff. So there's been these weird rumors that have been popping up online lately about apparently there's a director's cut out there and people are
Wow.
looking to see if they can get a copy of maybe not they may not be able to get the negative, but if they can get a solid enough work print that they could put it out on DVD. And I would snap that thing
watch
up like
it
crazy.
gladly. Can they
Oh,
also
very nice.
have they done a director's cut of another movie from the same time, Commando? That's a good
Oh,
movie.
okay. Yeah, I've heard that too. I haven't seen the director's
It'd
cut. I
be
saw that.
great. What a double pack that would be. You know, bang bang, just go straight into each other.
They
Well,
could
While we're on this episode of Cobra Cast, I want to chip in with. So, fun fact that you guys may or may not have known: Cobra, the movie Cobra Stallone, is a direct descendant of Beverly Hills Cop. Stallone
Really?
was originally
Okay.
supposed to play Beverly Hills Cop, and when they decided to go more lighthearted and comedic elements with Eddie Murphy, Stallone dropped out and took the idea that is basically his Beverly Hills Cop. Like he wanted it darker, so it's like it's a diverging timeline where this Beverly Hills Cop project splits off and keeps its name with Eddie Murphy and becomes a much darker thing with Stallone. So those two are always interlocked. So for this episode of Cobra Cast, I'm giving Cobra 5 full snakes.
Yeah, me too.
Same here. I give it 5.
Poor Aaron's got to edit all this.
Oh no, this is all staying. This is all again. This is all
This is all
Cobra's
gold.
GI Joe. So
this is going to be the shortest episode of this podcast ever. Aaron's going to cut out everything not G.I. Joe related, and it's going to be a 20-minute one.
Now what I want you to do is play in your head Beverly Hills Cop, but with Stallone instead of Eddie Murphy. It's such a weird movie now.
Wow,
Yeah,
I
you
can't
know,
even. Yeah, I
totally
can't even.
different
So
movie.
such a different performer. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I'd watch it.
oh,
I'd
definitely.
watch it. I love both of them. It's hard to picture it, kind of thing. And I mean, how much darker did they take it? A lot.
A lot.
Jesus.
And yeah, no. If I wanted this show to stay on topic, I wouldn't invite any of you guys. So
that is good
We
thinking right there.
I expect this show to go off the rails at some point. Usually, if Jared's in the first couple of seconds, I say his name, and Jared comes out and it's off the rails. Then
I drew a picture.
and that's why I keep him around. That's very nice, Cobra Commander.
Thank you, sir.
It'd be nice
Aaron, do a headcast, do a special episode where we just talk about Chips and Commando and Cobra.
Oh,
Just do a special
me. That's gonna be
episode.
the topic.
You can tie it into G.I. Joe. These all came out around the same time. So if you're
Right.
an age old enough to be into G.I. Joe, you were probably into those same things as
Yeah,
well.
I
I
mean,
need an
on our
Airwolf
Bravo
episode
team,
as
I'll
well.
do a special.
An
Yeah,
Airwolf,
yeah.
Blue Thunder.
That might be an interesting episode to
remember
have.
that.
I may have
Well,
to.
these are all things that I remember from my childhood. Blue Thunder, yep. The
I'll
helicopter,
keep an eye
yeah.
out. I'm thinking about doing that for a Bravo team. That's now that you bring that up, Brad.
Yeah,
Speaking of Sylvester Stallone, he was almost a Joe.
Yeah,
he was. He
Yes.
was. Rocky
I was, yes.
in the order of battle. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. Rocky Balboa was almost the GI Joe trainer, which is where
Really?
why they had Big Boa.
Came from. Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, Big Boa, they've announced they're going to do a classified figure for Big Boa.
Now
Does
they
he
need
have
to do a
does he- does
classified
he
with
have-
Rocky Balboa as a Joe. They need to make it official. Because
I
I
could
heard the
see
reason
that.
that it didn't happen was because of the Rambo cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
That's what I've
basically
heard
they were
too.
like, we didn't want him in 2 universes. It didn't make sense.
I don't like
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Rocky Balboa, Big Boa.
Yeah, it's
Boa.
all
I can
coming
see it.
together, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
all coming together. Does
Yeah,
the
they got a Big
classified
Boa.
does the classified Big Boa have a removable head? And you
Oh
got Stallone
yes,
underneath?
yes, it needs
Yes.
to come with
He has a
Stallone.
detachable head.
It
And there's
does.
another head you can put on without the helmet. But he got black eye, and he's like.
Does
messing
the other
with
head
people.
look like Stallone at
Oh,
all?
it's
Or
gotta- if they don't make it
No,
look like
I don't think
Stallone,
it
they
did.
no? Somebody's going to 3D print a Stallone
Oh,
head
it's
and put it
gonna
on Big
happen.
Boa.
Yeah, no, they do. But yeah, they do have a removable head for Big Boa with just a regular head that you can put on. They do have.
Wow. What a time to
Speaking
be
of
alive.
Rambo, I mean, he would make a great Joe. Rambo himself, like,
Yeah,
I could
just
see-
to mix
Yeah.
those 2 universes. Yeah,
well, why not? It's like they license different things and stuff. Like, they had what's his name, Sergeant Slaughter, and all that. You could bring in Rambo and
Yeah.
have a Rambo Joe. I mean,
Yeah.
Stallone likes money, doesn't he?
I believe he does. I mean, most
It
people
almost
do.
makes you wish that back in the day the toy industry decided to set like an industry standard for action figures and vehicles. Say, okay, you're going to have your troop builder scale, which is going to be 3 3/4 inch. So if you want vehicles and things like that, you got to make them to this scale.
Right.
So that way you could get like a Rambo line and a Cobra line, like a Cobra Adrian Cobretti line and a G.I. Joe line. You just kind of mix and match them. So you could have Cobra show up in his,
it's
kind
of like
GT
now
Cobra.
The Marvel Legends characters are very similar in size to the classified.
Right.
So we had that conversation, Aaron, where I was like, could you put your Baroness on the motorcycle, the Wolverine motorcycle and stuff? Yeah, there you go. Live in action.
I got Speedball driving the Ram with breaker hanging on. So
there you go. And so you're just
compatible.
living life to the fullest, aren't you? Really.
I don't have it. It's in the other room, my toy and collectible shelf. You can kind of see the picture of the paperbacks behind me, but it's got like a lot like the Star Wars Black Series. I just bought the original 12 figures that they did in 1978, and there's another shelf that's got some NECA figures because the scale's bigger. So it's got McCready from The Thing, and it's got the Terminator, and it's got RoboCop and stuff like that. So the scales are a little off here and there, but having that kind of uniformity sort of makes it a little more aesthetically pleasing.
Cool. That's cool.
I'm not into the Marvel Legends line, but I love Speedball, so I had to pick him up.
Speedball. Yeah, why not?
From the New Warriors, which I think someone on our show has a podcast about. But he's ignoring me, so no.
I don't. Oh yeah, we do.
I've heard.
Yes, that's my buddy Delvin runs the Come Out to Play. We do it as a live stream, and then we release the audio as a podcast. So check that out on the Long Box Crusade Network.
Yeah, give you a chance to plug yourself, and you're sitting there. I don't know who he's talking about. Is Brad?
Oh, Aaron's blah blah blah. Oh yeah. Oh, and he's helping me out here. Hang on.
I see. That's what confused you. I don't help you out very often. Usually, I'm throwing you under the bus.
I was waiting to dodge the barb, but I was off. I was on the wrong foot, as they say.
And that's why I do it. I like to keep people on their toes. You never know. Anyways, we've gotten off track of G.I. Joe because we're not Marvel Legends. So, final thoughts for this episode, Brad. Is there any other thoughts about the cartoon or comic that you haven't mentioned that you've thought of?
No, it was a great cartoon episode. It really got me thinking about Christmases past. It was a great issue of the comic. I look forward to seeing where it goes, given that it's been far too many years since I first read them. So I look forward to being pleasantly surprised by things that I may not have really responded to the first time around. They say that with age comes wisdom. I usually like to prove that wrong. Maybe this time there actually is some evidence to the contrary, though.
Well, we'll see. Very nice. And Dave, any final thoughts on the cartoon comic?
Enjoyable episode of the cartoon. I always have a lot of fun with that. I just watched it last night. I'd not seen it before, so it was a fun cartoon episode. Comic itself very strong, and continuing a very strong series. I can see why people say this is a high watermark for the comic and heavily invested. And the ad for special missions just reminds me that I'm a member of Bravo team now, and I didn't sleep in this episode as well. So
there
that's
you go.
also
That's
a
a start. That's always a good thing. Speaking of sleeping and not reading the book, Jared, any final thoughts on cartoon comic?
Hey, yeah,
you're done drawing, so it's nap time.
Yeah, I'm done drawing. So you guys always vamp enough time for me to get a drawing done, and I appreciate it. Speaking of the drawing, as usual, I'm going to put this up for sale. If we only had a couple people in the chat, but hey,
usually
if you guys are watching this, maybe as a replay or whatever, and you see this up for sale, hit me up privately, because if you mention that you saw me draw it on this show, I'll give you $5 off. It's a little coupon I do for people who are fans of Aaron's show.
I appreciate it.
But looking back on the comic and the cartoon, I'm very much in the Brad boat, actually, as I've kind of come to discover. This is, I guess, when I started reading other stuff or something. Like I haven't read a lot of these Joe comics. I have a good memory of like 1 through 50. Apparently Brad and I were doing the same thing. And then after that, I'm like, I don't know if I've read this before. So I'm excited. This is like this. It's new to me. So that's a good time right there. So I'm excited to move forward. And the cartoon's always a blast. This one had a lot of action. I really like the mixing up of Cobras and Joe vehicles and Joe's and Cobras vehicles. That just was fun. So yeah, man, just another fun-filled episode brought to you by the wonderful creators of G.I. Joe.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I agree with you guys. Yeah, both the cartoon and sometimes the cartoon sometimes isn't the best, but this time they did the cartoon.
But you know, at that point, it's kind of like watching Mystery Science Theater. Like it's so cheesy that it becomes comes back around to being entertaining.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Even the bad episodes of the cartoon is still G.I. Joe, so I'm not going to complain about it, except for in fun. So.
Just an aside that you may or may not cut out. I was doing a con and the voice of Storm Shadow was
right
there, right? And they were advertising voice of Storm Shadow was gonna be there, and I thought, oh man, you know, that's got to be embarrassing all these years on, you know, because I figured it was a white dude doing his best Asian accent, only to discover he was an Asian dude, and all of a sudden I felt a lot better about everything.
Very nice.
My whole life I thought it was like a white dude doing his best Asian accent.
And instead it was an Asian dude doing a accent that made you think it was a white dude. So
yeah,
it's like
that's with our heads,
Inception.
man.
It's Inception. It's wheels
Inception
wheels.
to be totally.
That's funny. Yeah, he was going deep cover. Triple agent.
Well, with animation,
you burned me good, man.
Because I mean, like Destro, he's clearly a white Scottish guy, but the voice actor is a black guy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You know what? It's funny. I was watching a thing, and I'm making your show longer, but I was watching a thing the other day about how it was done by an African American dude, and he was talking about that. He was talking about like how a lot of African American kids associated with Destro a lot, you know, and not even knowing who was behind the voice. But yeah, now that you look at it, like, oh, okay, well, it's
Arthur. I forget his name now, but it's Arthur something or another.
I mean, it's a great voice. Like,
no, he's my friend.
He's nowhere near Scottish anything, but it's definitive voice of Destro.
when I read the comic, and it's Destro, in my, you know, you'll read it and you'll kind of have an idea what the voice is, but I think for Destro, it's the voice from the cartoon. It's never been Sean
100%.
Connery or anything like that.
No, 100% cartoon guy.
Yeah.
Well, I've recently read Tales from the Cobra War, a G.I. Joe novel, a bunch of short stories. Okay. And in there was one with Destro, and he was there written very clearly with a Scottish accent.
Cool.
And
it was weird, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I kept wanting to think it was Major Blood, because the way the accent was written. And I guess I would, but I'm used to the cartoon, so yeah, to me that's Destro's voice. So
it's just like, who else is going to voice Optimus Prime?
Yeah,
nobody.
Yeah. I find it hard to read accents when they write them so that you're supposed to be reading it in the accent. I'm terrible at deciphering it. I just suck at it. I'm just like, why is this so hard to read?
But no, I'm reading them. This doesn't read right because that's not Destro. Well, actually, no, Destro's from Scott, so that probably would be closer to his accent and voice than what we got. But growing up on the cartoon, that's Destro's voice. So.
That is a definitive voice right there.
Yeah. I tried to get him on the show too. I've talked to him on Facebook and haven't gotten there yet. But
you had Zartan, didn't you? Was that?
Yes, I had the guy that did Zartan.
That's cool, man. You actually had Zartan
and Flint.
Flint. Yeah, I've talked to Zartan and Flint on the show.
That's cool.
So, actually, Flint's people reached out to me and asked for. I'm like, oh yeah, please. I'm like, you're kidding. This isn't really Flint's people. He was a great guy, great interview.
That's right.
I talked to both of them, and like I said, I talked to Buzz Dixon from the cartoon. So I'm trying to get more creators if I can on here, but
that's awesome.
Get him to talk to those for entirely, but that's my own issue.
You got to listen to Josh Blaylock when you were on my show.
Yes, I got to hear Josh Blaylock talk. The creator of the IDW G.I. Joe run. Yeah, I get to appear on that show and just actually talk about the book. But
a little behind the scenes for you guys. We booked Aaron for the show, and Josh Blaylock said he'd join us, and so I mean, Josh wrote the revival from Devil's Due, and so Aaron just kind of had to sit there and just like, thanks for having me on the show, everybody.
No, honestly though, it was fun listening to Josh talk and hearing the story. I loved it, so I appreciate you having me on. Even and then
we made it up to you.
Did make it up to you. That's not as much fun as giving you crap about. That's like I have you on, and then I'll get Larry Hama on.
That's
Oh,
how
I
it goes.
Just sit in the corner while we quiz Larry. Poor Larry. Just like,
I don't think
Larry,
Larry's-
we've got 45 questions for you.
yeah, I don't think Larry's going to be on my show. So he's one of the ones that we talked about here a couple episodes where I'm good at pissing people off. I that boat sailed. So.
Oh, no. Uh-huh. Wow.
But anyways, Jared, if people want to hear more about you, and I've already given you a little chance to plug yourself earlier, you almost missed. This is a direct. Jared, if you want people want to hear from you, where can they go? Do you have other shows you're doing?
All right, for my shows and stuff, pretty much Long Box Crusade. I got a bunch of shows over there. The one your audience might be most interested in is G.I. Joe Chronicles. We finished the 43 episode run that Devils Do put together. We are now continuing our run, bouncing back and forth between Devils Do's continuation series, America's Elite, and G.I. Joe Special Missions from the 80s. So those are the two things we're covering now. We have an additional show on G.I. Joe Chronicles run by our newest member, Jim Meal. And Jim's kind of talking about G.I. Joe in the broadest scopes, almost like we do later in the show here. He's talking about toys and the crazy things that you can get, bed sheets and Halloween costumes and just all the G.I. Joe extra stuff out there. So anyway, that's all at Long Box Crusade Network. If you're interested in me personally, you want to check out my artwares, I am at Yard Sale Artist on X, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my website at www.theyardsaleartist.com.
Yeah, I love seeing your stuff pop up on Facebook when you post your finished artwork, and it's fantastic, man. Awesome.
Thanks, but yeah, you throw a lot of support my way over there, and I appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, yeah. I love having you on the show, and I love seeing your artwork when you post. You do a great job. So, Dave, people hear more from you. Do you have a podcast out there that you're signaling people with?
I do have a podcast called Signal of Doom that we do weekly, me and Rich, comic book movies, pop culture. And it has, you can find us on Facebook. Good to see you said X, because it reminds me that it's no longer called Twitter. It's now called X, which I'm slowly getting my head around. But yeah, Signal of Doom. And we pump those shows out weekly, and we have guests on. We've got Chuck Dixon coming up. We've got John McCrae coming up. We've got Tom DeFalco coming up. And I want some G.I. Joe bed sheets too. I want some satin ones with maybe the image of Baroness.
I saw where we were going with that.
Yeah, so
Baroness, Lady J, CoverGirl, Scarlet, Jinx. We tend to forget about Jinx because she's not around yet. But
Jinx, but she's in my heart. She's there somewhere. Is she the one that I won't even bother? But I think Chuckles may have killed her at some point in IDW. Run, I believe.
Oh, yeah, and the Chuckles like in his miniseries.
Yeah, and in Cobra, I believe he may have actually killed her. Poor Jinx.
I recall that. I'll have to reread some of that. Yeah,
it's pretty good. I read it recently. It's pretty good. But thank you very much for having me on, Aaron, and great chatting with you guys.
It's always a pleasure, man. And Brad, what are you doing these days?
I don't have a podcast. I'm the only person here who doesn't have his own podcast. I'm just like the permanent, as you called me many times, the permanent Ed McMahon of this podcast. I'm the guest who never left. You can swing by my website, bradabraham.com, to learn more about me. And I actually, strangely enough, given some of the things we were talking about in this long rambling episode, I just posted a lengthy blog entry piece about the mall culture of the 80s and 90s, really? And how it declined, and how we in the current age have kind of missed out on having what they call that third place that you used to be able to go to just to hang out and meet people and do stuff. And it's sort of my memories specifically of the long gone Carolina Circle Mall in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I spent a lot of time back in the 80s. It's where I saw Commando, and there's even a little the poster for Commando there, and there's even a photo of a toy aisle laden with G.I. Joe things. So if you're into that whole thing, which I assume if you listen to this podcast you are, but it just went up, and I'd appreciate people swinging by and checking it out and maybe leaving a comment about it. My comic book mixtape, a little indie comic about the music scene of the 90s, is available now on indieplanet.com. You just have to search for mixtape and it'll pop up. And if you're interested in checking out some of my writing there, you can do that. And if you have not read my book, Magicians Impossible, it's still out there floating around, and I would recommend that as well.
And I second that recommendation.
Cool. Can you put that link up to that mall thing? Maybe in the chat or something, and I'll check it out. Sounds
great. Sure. Let me see if I can do that. I have the power here,
don't
it.
I? Got this thing called technology. It's great. No, but that sounds really interesting. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Brad's trying to find that. You can check me out on the Headcast Network. Lately, I haven't been getting out podcast episodes like I should. I just released one. I'm releasing one today, kind of explaining my delays. I'm hoping to get things back on track. This
is the lawsuits, isn't it? It's the lawsuits. You've had to settle them.
Yeah. Well, I finally got Brad settled. There's the one with me and Peppy Pat that we're still working on that one. That's why Pat hasn't been on here. He claimed I touched him inappropriately. Who says it's inappropriate?
Yeah, come on. A little pat on the rump. That was all it was.
A little pat for Pat. And Jared's like, oh, shit.
I was suspiciously silent.
But, I do have the show you're listening to, G.I. Joe. We also have Bravo Team, which every other month we will be talking about special missions with my co-host there, Dave, to go along with Jared's special missions talk on his podcast. And then the other months on Bravo Team will be whatever else I feel like talking about G.I. Joe related, or maybe just something from this era, as Brad has brought up. So we'll see what happens on that as far as the Cobra podcast. But I've also got my other shows, Head Speaks, which I talk about anything geek related. Right now I'm going through the Power of the Atom series.
Cool.
Plus other things. I've got my Task Force X, which is looking at, right now I'm just on the John Ostringer Suicide Squad. I've already finished up with the Checkmate run. We've got the Starman Adventure Hour, which the name of that show is constantly changing. Right now I'm looking at the Will Payton Starman. Originally it was the Will Payton Starman and the Mark Shaw Manhunter, but I finished that book, so it's just the Will Payton book right now. And let me see. Oh, also for my G.I. Joe network, I've got The Adventure Continues, which is looking at the role-playing game. We've actually, due to life, we've put a hold on the game right now. So I've got a few more episodes released on that. That'll be stopping for right now until we start it back up, hopefully at some point. And then the wife and I are doing the Starbright Project, which is looking at the Quantum Leap TV series, which again was originally, I'm an old fan of Quantum Leap. My wife's only seen an episode or two here or there, so she's watching it for the first time. And then they went ahead and released the new season, however you want to refer to it. So we switched over to that. She's not as happy with this one, so I'm not, right now the show's kind of in flux. I'm not quite sure. We've watched a lot of the other episodes out of order just to get her caught up for the new show and get her some highlights. So I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with that show yet, but I've still got a dozen episodes recorded. I got to finish editing and petting out. And there's also Voyagers Cast, which is looking at the 1982 TV series Voyagers. We're coming up at the end of that show. So those are my shows on the Headcast Network, headcastnetwork.com. And there's also on Facebook, facebook.com/group/GI Joe for this show, or group/Headcast Network for the rest of everything else. Please join us, take a listen, let me know what you think. And thank you guys, Heinz and Kathy. Thank you for joining us in the chat, even though it looks like you guys have all left. Thank you guys for joining us when you were here. And again, I want to thank you three very much for showing up today. Jared, Brad, and Dave. Talking about Pat, I forgot what I was talking about for a second there.
He's just off screen. He's right over here.
Don't say anything.
Lurking in the background. He's like, hey.
I don't know I'm here. Jared, Brad, and Dave, thank you very much for joining me, guys. It's always fun. Until next time, remember, knowing is half the battle. Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
And I'm going to go and end the broadcast.